They called him a nightmare wrapped in leather. The youngest heavyweight champion in history. A man who could end a fight in 91 seconds and walk out of an arena with the world still trying to understand what had happened. But the thing about nightmares, they begin long before the lights. Mike Tyson's life started in silence, hunger, and a rooftop full of pigeons. If you think you know him from the ring, you don't know him at all. Stay with me. This isn't a highlight reel. This is the man who learned to never be helpless again and paid for that lesson with everything. Brooklyn, 1966. A tiny apartment. A mother who works and sleeps and comes back broken. A father who vanishes. There's cold in the hallway and kids who laugh at the glasses and the lisp. Little Mike learns early. Being small makes you invisible. So he finds pigeons, a place he can speak without being ignored. He builds cages out of plaster and hope. They're the first creatures that don't leave him. Then a boy steals one of those pigeons. It isn't a story about a bird. It's the birth of a vow. Humiliation boils into a decision. Never be powerless again. He chases that like air. He chases it into trouble, into fights, into courts and detention centers. By 13, he's been arrested dozens of times. By 14, he's sent away. A counselor sees him beating a bag and does something nobody else has. He stays. That's the pivot. That's the day the angle of Mike Tyson's life changes. In a cold Catskills gym, an old trainer named Customado looks at a furious boy and says 3 words: "You can be champion." Not a promise, a command disguised as faith. Cuss takes him in. He doesn't just teach hooks and footwork, he builds armor. 2 a.m. runs in bitter wind. Thousands of squats and sit-ups that leave you certain you'll never move again. He teaches a style, the peekaboo, that makes lightning look slow. But more than technique, Cuz gives Mike the one thing that was missing: someone who refuses to look away. That training is brutal because it is precise. It makes Mike fast enough to become a living weapon, but it also keeps him tethered. When Cuz dies, Mike loses not only a coach, he loses a father, a hand on the wheel. The training, the discipline, the guards that kept him human, they begin to fray. This is the era that made headlines. 1985 to 1988. Every opponent falls. The world watches a young man punch through history. He knocks out Marvis Frazier, pulverizes Pinklin Thomas, and at 20, he seizes the heavyweight crown from Trevor Berbick. The world breathes loud for him. He becomes spectacle and currency. $22 million purses, stadiums that roar like battlefields. But the arena is a poor place to grieve. The belts and the money don't replace the hand that guided him. And somewhere in all that adoration, the core wound is still there. A boy who never felt safe, who never felt steady. Glory covers it for a while. Then glory makes it worse. It attracts people who don't love him, only what he can buy and become. 2 pillars gone. Cuss, then Jimmy Jacobs. The moral compass that guided him has disappeared. Into that hollow steps a man who knows how to sell spectacle. Don King. The lights grow brighter. The nights grow longer. Discipline loosens. Training becomes secondary to appearances and deals. The first major crack appears in Tokyo, 1990. Buster Douglas, heavy underdog, walks in focused. Mike walks in distracted, overconfident, underprepared. He gets knocked down. He gets stopped. The shock isn't just a loss of a title. It's a public unraveling, the price of drifting from the rules that made you unstoppable. Then comes the legal wreck. Conviction, prison, bars closing with a sound like finality. The world hurls its worst at him, and he gets left alone with what he has been running from, his whole life, the parts of himself he never healed. Prison punishes, but it also forces examination. He reads, he boxes inside yards, he fights men he doesn't have to fight, and he begins, slowly, to confront the disgrace he had built by neglect and indulgence. If you want to understand Mike's private life, don't look for scandal. Look for the pattern. He married very young to Robin Givens, a marriage that splays in public pain and private missteps. It's not just about tabloid fury. Then Monica Turner arrives, a stability he desperately needs. She is a doctor, calm, practical. For a fleeting time, it looks like the son of Brownsville might finally get the family he wanted. 2 children follow. But the old wounds, jealousy, restlessness, unresolved rage, keep widening the gaps. Divorce follows. The story repeats. He reaches for love, but the skeletons keep climbing out of the closet. Naomi Campbell is a brief human connection, then others. It's messy. It's human. It's not tabloid fodder. It's one man repeatedly trying and failing to hold what he values most. This is the place where words fail. In 2009, a tiny life named Exodus is gone after a household accident. 4 years old, gone in minutes. It makes him collapse into a kind of permanent silence. He doesn't explode into headlines. He folds. He learns a new language of sorrow. Exodus changes him more than any fight. It is the hinge between the man who destroys and the man who is forced to learn tenderness. The relationship with Soul then fractures under the weight of grief. They stay intertwined in mourning, but romantic life changes. If Cuz's death had hollowed something out, Exodus's death sealed what had been opening. By the early 2000s, despite earning hundreds of millions, Mike declares bankruptcy. You don't have to be an accountant to see how. Bad deals, extravagant purchases, lack of financial counsel, Bengal tigers, a gold bathtub, hundreds of cars. It reads like bankruptcy humiliates him publicly and privately. He sleeps on couches. He signs papers that show a man who never learned to steward the fortune he created by being ferocious. And yet, that collapse becomes his education. When you have nothing, you begin to rebuild more carefully. Rebuilding means therapy, structure, new habits, and finally, an acceptance that the man with fists must become the man who shows up for his children and his health. This is the least glamorous chapter, and it's the most important. He hits Broadway with a show that is not a brag, but an exhumation. He tells the story raw, without excuses. People are stunned. The old fighter's ferocity translates into an unvarnished honesty that sells out theaters. He does interviews. He opens up about drugs, anger, shame. He restores dignity, not by demanding it, but by working for it. He starts businesses with sense, not flash, produces content, hosts a podcast that millions listen to, invests in property quietly, curates a collection of vehicles with care rather than impulse. He becomes methodical. He invests in his kids' futures. He trains for longevity, not for a title. He spends on health more than spectacle. That's the new discipline. Kiki comes into the picture, not as a savior, but as a partner who knows how to keep a house steady. They marry. They have children. The life they build is imperfect. It's slow. It's full of therapy sessions, apologies, boundaries, the small rituals of real life. School runs, groceries, doctor's appointments. He's not perfect. He still has nights when old demons whisper. But he has learned, painfully, to stay. He learns how to apologize without defensiveness, how to pick up a child from school, even when exhaustion tries to steal him. The public sees a softer Mike, and this softness is not surrender. It's an achievement that would have seemed impossible to the kid on that Brooklyn roof. Now at 59, the body has a new language. Sciatica, ulcer flares, aching joints. The man who once treated his body as a tool for annihilation has to treat it like a fragile engine. He learns that rest can be discipline. He swaps sprint training for safe routines, stretching, breathing, medical checkups. He invests in doctors and physical therapists the way he once invested in sparring partners. He speaks publicly about taking medication on time, about sleep, about hydration. Even the small things, a morning walk, a calm meal, a stretch, become the victories of a different kind. The irony is clean. The fight that matters most now is the fight to keep living well, to enjoy sunsets with a family he nearly lost to his own excess. Mike Tyson's legend is easy. The truth is harder. He was a boy who learned to become unstoppable because he could not tolerate being helpless. That instinct made him the most feared man in the ring and almost destroyed everything else: relationships, finances, the fragile possibility of a normal life. But what stands now is not simply a comeback story. It's a lesson in how a person can be remade by pain into something quieter and more useful. He's still fierce. He still speaks in a voice that can command a room. But now that voice says things that matter in small, dangerous ways. Get help. Don't drink away your loneliness. Learn to sit with your grief. Steward the money. Be a present father. If you remember the fights, the 91 seconds, the roar, the controversies, you'll now see them as part of a jagged path that led him to this. A life rebuilt, imperfect, real. He went from being built by rage to being rebuilt by responsibility. If this moved you, share it. Not because Mike needs more applause, but because stories like this can teach us. Survival is never just about power. It's about choosing every day to repair what we broke. Follow for more human stories, where the knockout is no longer the end. It's a beginning